Let's set the stage. I, 35 male, thought I had a solid marriage with my wife, 33 female, of 7 years. We had built a life together, and I believed in the strength of our bond. We met in our early 20s and instantly knew we would be together forever. We are both very career-driven people and have always discussed having children. Because of the financial commitment involved, we wanted to wait until we were on solid ground before trying. About a year before all of this, we began trying to have a baby, but my wife was infertile, so we couldn't have one naturally. I wanted to discuss other options, but she seemed to be uninterested in any other alternatives and shut me out completely. She was the love of my life, so I wanted us to fix things, but she denied every suggestion for counseling or therapy. Recently, things took a turn for the worse. My wife started exhibiting suspicious behavior, being secretive with her phone, working late more often, and growing more emotionally distant. I had a gut feeling something was going on, but I didn't want to believe it. A close friend told me it might be nice to surprise her one day because she was working late, and I thought about bringing dinner to cheer her up. I thought it was a great idea, so I stopped by her favorite restaurant and then made my way over. What I thought would be a romantic gesture ended with discovering her in a compromising situation with none other than her boss. It was a shocking sight that left me heartbroken and angry. They were too busy with each other in her office to even notice me. I knew right away that was the end of our relationship. I dropped the food in the trash can and stormed out of her office. On the drive back home, I thought about what I was going to do. I thought about confronting her and demanding me divorce, but I knew that if I did, she would try and get spousal support for me. I knew that I needed to catch her in the act with evidence. Over the next few days, I crafted a plan to expose their affair. I was angry with her, so I wanted to ensure they faced the consequences of their actions, and I wanted our families to know the truth. First, I enlisted the help of a close friend who happened to be a talented videographer. We set up hidden cameras in my house to capture evidence of the affair. Shortly after setting up the cameras, I told my wife that I had an emergency business meeting and would be out of town for the weekend. She didn't ask any questions. She even seemed excited. There was no doubt in my mind that she was falling right into my trap, and planned on inviting her boss over to her house. I rented a room at a hotel and waited until my trip was over, killing time by working with my divorce lawyer to get the papers prepped. When I got back home, I checked the tape and confirmed that I did have the proper evidence to move on with the next phase of my plan. I pretended like everything was normal and went about my daily activities. Our anniversary was coming up, so I figured that was the perfect time to get some of our family and friends together. I sent invitations to over a dozen people, telling them that I was throwing a surprise anniversary brunch for my wife. I received a lot of excited RSVPs almost immediately, with people promising not to mention anything to her. On the day of the brunch, everybody loaded into her house. I set up a large banquet table with catered food, mimosas, and Bloody Marys. Everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. My wife had a bright look in her eyes similar to when we first met, and I could see that the gesture impressed her quite a bit. That made the second half of the brunch even more rewarding to me. With the help of my friend, we put together a video to show the party. The first half of the video was a collage of our marriage, wedding photos, videos of the two of us being stupid and in love, you name it. If the second half didn't feature my wife in bed with her boss, it would have been really sweet. When everyone realized what was happening, shock and disbelief filled the room. Some family members were stunned into silence, while others erupted in anger. It was an explosive moment, to say at least. While the chaos erupted around me, I couldn't help but look at my wife's face and savor the humiliation. It seemed cruel. And even then, I felt a little guilty, but I wanted her to feel the way I did when I found her sleeping with her boss. My wife stormed out, telling me that she never wanted to see me again. Before she could leave, I told her that I felt the exact same way and handed her an envelope with the divorce papers inside. As expected, she did try to fight me during the divorce proceedings, but with the evidence that I had, she was unable to get anything from me. However, I did let her keep the house because I didn't want to live in the same place where I caught her sleeping with her cheating. I had actually been wanting to move to Oregon for a long time, so without her constant refusal, I was finally able to go. It's clear that the op went through a tremendous amount of pain and betrayal, discovering the affair. To the op, I want to offer my sincerest apologies for the pain you've endured. Discovering infidelity is devastating, and it's completely understandable to want to get some kind of justice afterward. It's clear that op was trying to save what they had remaining of their marriage, and it's a shame that she wouldn't communicate her feelings with you before the affair. It almost makes me wonder if she planned on using the inability to conceive as a reason to end things but was too nervous to say anything. Anyways, thank you for sharing with us. Now let's move on to our next story for the day. I, 32 male. Recently discovered that my wife, 30 female, was cheating on me with my uncle, 45 male. My wife and I have been married for 5 years. She had never been close with her family. So when she met mine, she fell in love. We've always been extremely close-knit, and we all care deeply for one another. Every year, my family has a small vacation together. It's really just a big family reunion since we all live in different states, and normally only see each other on major holidays. My grandfather's lake house was where we usually met every year. It was huge. All of the adults had their own rooms while the kids shared rooms. There was a pool, fishing dock, boat, etc., and it was right on the water. My wife accompanied me on her first vacation in the summer of 2019. Of course, since the pandemic, we haven't been able to meet up as we normally would. My wife got pregnant in February of 2021, so we were extra careful to minimize exposure with a new baby on the way. She and I were extremely isolated together during that time. We both worked from home at the time in a tiny apartment. We are both very independent people, so we value our alone time to pursue our own interests. Codependency was never something either of us wanted in our relationship. However, since we were together so much there was a strain on our relationship, we still loved each other deeply, and I never doubted her feelings. But we could both tell that we needed a little bit of space for each other, even if that was just the 8 hours a day we spent apart while we were at work. Shortly before the baby was born, we closed on a house and moved everything over to prepare for the baby's arrival. Once the baby arrived, we were more in love with each other than we ever had been. All of the issues we had, while we were in lockdown together, seemed to disappear, and we fell back into our usual patterns. It probably helped that the house was large enough for us to not be on top of each other all the time. This year, 2023, was the first year since the beginning of the pandemic that my family has felt comfortable enough to get together again. My wife and I were very excited to meet up with everybody again and introduce all of my relatives to her baby. At first, everything was wonderful. We had a nice barbecue with all of my family the day we arrived, the kids played in the water, and some of the adults took the boat out to soak in the sun. My wife was spending a lot of time with my uncle and his ex-wife. Their relationship is a long story, but in short, they were divorced, but still friendly and had a lot of love for one another, and they wanted to make sure their children had a loving family. It was kind of complicated, though. Anyway, I didn't think much about my wife spending time with them because she's always been a very friendly and outgoing person. So it was my uncle. Both of them were the life of any party they would go to. It seemed natural that both outrageous personalities would gravitate toward one another. I must have had my blinders on for the first couple of days of the vacation. Because on third day, when we were all sitting around the dinner table eating, I noticed my wife shuffling around in her seat a lot. She was sitting next to me, and my uncle was across from her. I tried to be subtle about figuring out what was going on, but I was able to catch a glance under the table to see her sliding her foot up his thigh. Instantly, I felt like I was going to be sick. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I didn't want to. I had to get away, so I faked feeling sick, and went up to our room to lie down. She offered to come with me, but I told her I was fine. I just had to get away from her. Her laptop was sitting on the bed, and I couldn't resist the temptation to see if there had been any communication between her and my uncle. I hated to be the person to look through someone's messages, but that behavior couldn't have started out of the blue, right? I knew her password, so I logged into her Facebook account and searched through her messages. Lo and behold, I found her chats with my uncle. It all started when he posted a picture of himself at the beach on his timeline. She messaged him first, hinting at how good he looked. From there, the messages took a turn. They were extremely flirty, sexting, and they even exchanged some pictures with each other. It had been going on virtually for over a year. It didn't seem like they had any feelings for one another. It was purely lust. When I saw their most recent messages, my heart sank. She told him that they would finally have a chance to be with each other at the reunion. And that was what she was looking forward to most. Apparently, they snuck off to the boathouse together the night before and have sex. And they planned on doing it again that night. I was in so much pain that I didn't think there was any way for me to stay there. I thought about leaving and going home to pack my things, but I came up with a better idea. I wanted my family to know what they had done. I acted normal for the rest of the night, pretending to have a headache and staying behind in my room. After my wife thought that I was asleep, I joined some of my cousins on the porch later that night. I suggested that we should take the boat out and have a couple of beers on the water. At that time, I knew that my wife and uncle were planning on meeting each other there, and my cousins were always down for something spontaneous like that. We all walked over to the boathouse together, which was a short walk away from the main house. It was the only place on the property where somebody could go to have an illicit affair like they were without the risk of getting caught. When we got there, I opened the door to expose both of them to my cousins. The lights were already on, so they saw everything that was happening on top of the boat. I stormed off pretending like I wasn't expecting to see what I did. My wife chased after me, and I told her that we were done, that there was no excuse for her behavior, and that I was going to file for divorce in the morning. She begged me not to do that, but I didn't listen. My cousins got into a blowout argument with my uncle for betraying his family the way he did. It was so loud that everyone else in the house woke up and got involved. Absolutely, nobody could see either of their sides. In the end, I was able to divorce her, so she was out of the family for good. My uncle was ashamed by everyone, and told he would not be invited to the reunions anymore after that. His ex-wife and children were ashamed of his behavior. I hope that they would still consider going without him, but we'll see what happens next summer. First off, OP, I am so sorry you had to go through that. You had gone through a lot with your ex before the vacation, and it really seemed like things were going to work out. She and your uncle had been waiting and planning for their opportunity to tray you, that was clear. What I don't understand is why she wouldn't come to you if there was something wrong in your relationship. You seem like you would have wanted to mend anything that was broken between the two of you. It's a shame that she would stoop so low so easily. Especially with a member of your own family. I hope that you've been able to heal and move on from her. From what you've described of your relationship, it sounds like you're better off without her. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.